Good evening, parents, and welcome to Sophia Connect. So tonight we've got a special presentation, and we're going to be covering a topic which you have asked specifically for support at home, and that is how we can help you in supporting your child's literacy and numeracy at home. Good evening, my name is Daryl Castellano, and I'm the Deputy Principal and Head of the School of Connect. And with me, we've got four fantastic leaders who are experts in literacy and numeracy. We've got Miss Ashleigh Tabone, who's our literacy leader in primary. We've got our primary leader, Miss Stephanie Musgrave. And then in the secondary, we've got Mrs. Angeli Kihi, who's our literacy leader, and Mr. Michael Knight, who leads our numeracy. So we're all very excited. We've got sound, so that's a good start. Now, just to give you a rundown of tonight's format, it's going to be two 10-minute presentations and then 10 minutes where we'll have an opportunity to answer any questions. So please, parents, if you could type your questions in the comment box, we'll be able to, at the end of our session, get back to you, answer questions on anything you have. Now, I'm not going to talk too much longer. I'm going to pass you over to our primary team, where they're going to explain how we teach literacy and numeracy and what are the types of things that you can do at home.
Good evening, everyone. Over the next 10 minutes, we're going to break up into two sections. We're first going to look at literacy, how that looks like in the classroom, and then some helpful tips at home. And then we'll have a look at numeracy, again, what it looks like in the classroom, and how you can support and encourage those skills to be revised and consolidated at home. Now, very quickly, I'm sure lots of you have already seen on Seesaw and walking through the classroom pre-COVID and hearing your children, our students, talk about what literacy looks like at Santa Sophia. So in the primary school, our literacy block runs for 100 minutes every day. Our numeracy, 60 minutes every day. Within the literacy block, they have reading groups, and that's a time where students in a very small group meet with this teacher on a book that is chosen specifically by the teacher at an instructional level for that child, and they focus on individual goal setting and looking at specific development of reading strategies. They also have literacy pods that they're working independently, where they're developing their knowledge of word and letter building, oral language, fine motor, writing, technology skills, all within a literacy environment. We have a very big focus on oral language here at Santa Sophia, ensuring they're developing those key skills of answering and asking questions. We have a variety of different writing that happen every day. Teachers are doing model writing each day. We have guided writing groups, similar to the guided reading groups, where a teacher will take a small group with them and really focus on the writing needs and strategies for those particular students. And the students have many opportunities for independent writing as well. Throughout the classroom, all learning is visible so that students can access their specific goals, their next steps, and have an opportunity to share and model with each other what their learning is. Now, we'd like to spend quite a big chunk on looking at how you as parents can support the literacy at home. Now, at Santa Sophia, we really want to ensure our students are developing a love of literacy, particularly a love of reading and writing. And this can be done by fostering that at home as well, engaging in what they're bringing home and also engaging in their interests as well.
Yeah. There are three main ways that you can continue to develop that love of reading at home, and there are three types of reading that can take place. One, your child can read independently, and that could be either reading to themselves or reading to a younger brother or sister or even to a pet. The other would be reading with a little bit of parent help, and they might be some of the books that they're currently working with their teacher in the classroom reading. And the third would be listening to you read to them. So hearing what a good reader sounds like. So whether that's a story before bed or a special time during the week that you can just sit down and read a book together. Because we know children love that. I know in the classroom that's their favourite time of the day. And it's just story time and they can sit there and listen. And you see them really engaged and they really want to hear what's coming next.
The children really engage and fall in love with that storytelling when it's an interactive experience, when they're able to talk with you about what they're reading or talk with you about what you're reading. They love hearing people read because it really shows them what good reading sounds like. They love being able to turn the pages with you you to physically get into those picture books that you might be reading to them, to talk about the pictures, to even talk about what they would do if they were in the book themselves. Developing those comprehension skills are really important. Have those conversations about what's your favourite part of the story? What would you do if you were a character in the book yourself? How could you change the ending? Really bring the story to life by having those conversations with your child.
So to help you in doing that at home, you would have noticed that we've been sending home some readers in their guided reading folder or their reading folder, whatever we call it at the moment. It's a notes folder. I know the children call them all sorts of things. But there's two types of books. One of the types of books are the guided readers. These are the books that they're using in guided reading in a small group with their teacher. So some of the words still might be tricky when they bring these books home for the first time, and that you might need to help a little bit when they're reading these books at home.
These books are specifically chosen by the teacher for the specific students. They're what we call debugged by the teacher first. So they have a very intensive guided session with the teacher before these come home. So they shouldn't be new to the students. However, it is at what we call their instructional level, what best helps them learn and revise those reading strategies.
Some of the other books that they'll be bringing are home readers. And you can identify the difference between these at home because the guided readers won't have any stickers on the back. However, the home readers have a HR on the back. So in a big white circle sticker with the big black letters HR, they are home readers. You might have already noticed that the level of these is slightly less. It might be 1 or 2 levels below their instructional readers. This is because we want these books that they can read easily, books where they can really focus on the way that their reading sounds rather than breaking apart words and working on word level, but looking at the text at a whole. And they're books that they can just read on their own, or again, read that to a younger brother or sister so they still have an audience.
These books that you're seeing are chosen by the students. We also have a variety of chapter books, early chapter books that we're starting to introduce, particularly in Year 2 and for some of those more independent readers. You'll notice that these chapter books have quite larger font, which is an excellent way to start getting into these books, and they have a lot of pictures in them as well, because we're really developing the students' understanding that pictures also hold meaning. A big favourite is The Bad Guys, particularly in Year 2.
The Bad Guys is a different type of book again. It is for our independent readers, but it's great because it's more of a comic book that the children can really engage in by looking at the visuals as well as the words. So it's the pictures that are really telling the story and really reading the pictures and the words to put that whole story together. It's really important children are exposed to a large variety of texts, which is why they might not just bring home fiction stories, so stories that are made up, but also some non-fiction, so some information text. They might sometimes bring these home as their guided reader or home reader as well, but exposing them to all these different things that I know, especially Year 1 and Year 2 children, they love learning about how the world works and they love learning new information.
Yeah, so going to the library, getting books as presents, going to the bookstores, borrowing things from school, all of those things to really develop a huge range of literature based on the students' interests, because that's what engages them the most. They also love engaging with you as well.
Yeah, so a fun way that you could do that is by looking at recipe books, which is a great way to really test children's comprehension, because not only do they need to read a recipe, but also focus on what is that asking him or her to do and to follow that procedure. And it's, really, really good for comprehension. The other thing I forgot to mention was the PME collection. We have set those bookshelves up so that they are also easy reads that the child could read independently. And it does have the feature on the PME collection that they can record themselves reading and listen back to it, which brings me to the next point on if you're looking at, well, how can I help my children with reading at home? What should be my goal? The goal for children is for their reading to sound like talking, to bring that story to life. So really looking at 3 things. Does that sound smooth like talking? And that's often a question that I'll ask the children as they're reading. Does that sound smooth like talking? Is that the way we would say it? The second would be, are you using the punctuation to guide the way your reading sounds? So you're pausing at that comma and stopping at that full stop. So you're using the punctuation to really bring that story to life as well, especially with speech marks and exclamation marks, and that The third one of, are you using expression? Are they using intonation? And are they using different character voices? And in Year 2, I know Miss Musgrave next door to the Year 2 classroom enjoys hearing the voices that they're putting on for the different characters.
They're very engaged in Reader's Theatre at the moment, so they're really enjoying using big bad wolf voices and Goldilocks and all sorts of things.
Scared voices and fearful voices, all these different things.
Give them that opportunity to turn reading into a movie and really animate it and excite the audience that they're reading to, because reading is for a purpose and they love reading to an audience. We're going to really quickly fly through now what numeracy looks like in the primary school. We do maths every day, and it consists of a warm-up, which is really number focused, looking at counting, place value, to just consolidate those skills because those are integrated in all mathematics that we do. We then have a very big focus on inquiry with our open-ended investigations. They allow for collaboration, they allow for extension, students to really push themselves into their own zone of learning.
Problem solving as well.
Problem solving is a very big focus with our open-ended activities. And then we have multiple opportunities for reflection throughout the lessons. The teachers often stop when they see a moment that they think that's really important for everyone to see, whether it's a particular strategy that's being used, a different way of solving a problem, even a challenge that a student has come across. That then helps the other students go, oh, that I want to help solve that problem, or I've got a different strategy, I've got a new way of looking at that problem. We do, however, really want to focus on what numeracy can look like at home.
Yeah. So we are going to, at the end of our Facebook Live tonight, send home some helpful tips and activities that you can do at home for reading, writing, and of course numeracy. On the numeracy sheet, you are going to see a heap of different games that will help develop and consolidate their counting, place value, addition, subtraction, and multiplication and division knowledge. And with that, if you do choose to engage in some of these activities, the big question we would love you to ask your child is, how did you work that out? Can you tell me about the thinking that you were doing? And continue to probe and ask those questions so you can find out and help your child identify what is the strategy that they've used to find a solution.
They're very good at saying, I just know it, or they'll just tell you the answer, but the thinking behind it is really important. Diving deep into the strategies. Tell me the numbers you used. What was happening in your mind? Did you visualize? Can you count it out for me? Getting them really to speak and engage in the activity itself. All of these things with the activities that you can see up on the screen, which you will get later, there's links to videos so that you understand as parents how this game can happen in the home. But it's also really important to understand that maths is everywhere, in everything that we do, and there's so many different pieces of equipment that you would have just lying around the home. You can use counters like buttons and shells, lids.
Anything that you have lots of. So if you have lots of pencils around your house, that would be an excellent resource. Just things that they can grab a handful of and count that quantity.
Just like a handful of Smarties.
Yes. Which sometimes done in the classroom as well. Jelly beans work as well. All those different things.
Yeah.
Just whatever we can do to make maths fun.
Exactly. Going back to that recipe book that they were doing for reading or writing, and actually then engaging in the maths, using the measuring spoons and scoops and understanding the difference of quantities. There's so much that you can find within the home itself. Dice you can use for everything. Board games themselves are full of numeracy, decks of cards, all sorts of things that you can play lots of different games with that we're providing you with. But all of these types of things are my favourite, because I just get to go out to the shed with my dad. But what do I get to do with all this, Miss Tabone?
So one of the big things that we're finding, especially in stage 1, so year 1 and year 2, is children understanding number lines. And for them to understand that a number line is not just a static line that goes from 0 to 100, but there are so many different forms of number lines, like a ruler, a tape measure, measuring tape, and using these to not only measure things, but if you're going out to the shed to measure how long a table is, asking your child, well, if we were to cut this table or this piece of wood in half, what would be the halfway point? So measuring the whole length, then what would be the halfway point? And also even finding different numbers and comparing where that is to other numbers. what number comes before, what number comes after. They're all the different things that we're working on in the classroom, and you could continue to consolidate that knowledge with them.
And as we know, maths is in everyday life. It's in when we go shopping and the money that we use and the register that we're seeing. You'll now be able to see in most shopping centres all the numbers of the prices come up. It's in all the different clocks that we wear, in the timetabling of things, where we need to be, things literally just in the car itself. Everything is digital that involves mathematics. So there's a world of maths around us. It's just about identifying it and talking it through.
Wow, 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 wow. So hopefully parents at home, you've got lots of tips there on how you can support your child's literacy and numeracy. And look, just a reminder, if you've got any questions at all, please add your questions in the comment box, and we'll be able to, at the end of our presentation, be able to answer those questions. We did start 5 minutes late due to the sound, so we'll just extend our time till about 8:35 tonight. Now, as you know, one of the, or maybe you don't know, but a big impact on student learning is when parents support the learning at home. And often there's a myth that kind of finishes in year 6, and in secondary school it's all up to the teachers. But as you know, here at Santa Sophia, we're about working in partnership with you. And hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll be able to see how you can help your son or daughter in secondary school in literacy and numeracy. So, I'm going to now pass it on to Mrs. Kihi and Mr. Knight, who's going to take you through what literacy and numeracy look like in the secondary school and what you can do at home to support your child.
Good evening, parents. I'll just quickly go through a little bit about literacy at Santa Sophia. So in the secondary, it's a little bit different to the primary school. We have subjects, multiple subject areas, but we do see every secondary teacher as a teacher of literacy. Our aim overall is that all of our students will eventually graduate from Santa Sophia as effective communicators in a variety of contexts. So whether that's in a social, workplace or academic setting, we want them to be able to communicate really well. In the secondary, at the moment, we have a big focus on exposing our students to complex texts. And being able to read and comprehend those texts and be able to compose a variety of different texts. So a reminder that in secondary we do have multiple subjects. Each of our teachers are experts in their discipline, and so it's really important to think about our students, or your children rather, reading multiple different types of texts in multiple different subjects with different subject areas. There is writing in every single subject, but it is specific to the subject that it is, and there is support provided at every stage of the writing process. Our main goal really is to ensure that our students are reading a lot of different complex texts and being able to think about the different ideas that those texts present to us and be able to write about them. In the next slide, you'll see that there are 3 main strategies that our secondary teachers often use. They are called the thinking aloud, which is a way that our teachers would model how capable reading looks out aloud as together. A second one is called thinking note keys. That's a key that we provide our students that allows them to mark their reading as they're thinking about what they're reading. So we give them a key, and normally what we see in secondary is we ask them to read something and highlight, and often they highlight everything because everything seems like it's super important. But this key allows them to think a bit more strategically about their reading. So they think about what the main idea is, they might be thinking about questions that come up, they're aware of things that they don't understand. So the idea is that strategy helps them to be aware of their reading, and that's really important as well. The third one, which is called 3 vocabulary, relates to different types of vocabulary that is required in writing and when in the text that we read. The main thing that we focus on is on Tier 2 and Tier 3. So your Tier 3 words are the words that are subject specific, the jargon that's related to a specific subject, and Tier 2 is probably what we focus a lot more on, which is your academic style language. So in the secondary, we are asking our students to start to compose more increasingly sophisticated texts, especially once they get to stage 5, and with that comes the need to use a wider vocabulary, a more sophisticated vocabulary. Our main goal in the secondary is that we equip our students with the skills that they need to read and respond to a variety of texts, not just written ones, but spoken ones, videos that they watch, especially as they progress through their schooling and they need to be exposed to these more complex texts. The main thing I wanted to get across to you this afternoon is on the next slide, which you will see has some helpful secondary tips. I put in some links there. You will have access to this later on, so if you'd like to go back and click on those links, please do. The most important thing is that you provide a literacy-rich environment at home for your child. It's going to be very hard to support their reading and their writing at home if there's nothing to support, there's no environment to support that. So there is a link there that does include things like providing reading for them, taking them to the library, being interested and showing an interest in their writing, providing space for them to write at home. The second article, How to Get Your Teenager to Read More, is quite interesting. It has some research-based evidence in there about things that you could do to help your teenager to read more. Teenagers are hard to get to read. Some are avid readers, and others, a lot of the time as a parent-teacher, I often hear parents say they used to read a lot, but they don't read anymore. One of the main things this article presents to us is that it's because teenagers are so keen to have that instant gratification that they often get on their devices. And often that's probably why you find that your child doesn't want to read, because they're on their device checking lots of various different things. So use technology to your advantage. Reading with a physical book is obviously the aim, but reading online might be a way to transition them towards it, especially if your child doesn't normally read. Think about ourselves as adults. We often use our devices to read news articles and often other texts as well. So if we're doing that as well, we kind of expect them to want to do that too. But audiobooks are another option as well, particularly for students that struggle a little bit with reading. Audiobooks are definitely an option, but they're also fabulous for capable readers as well, and for those that are also very time poor. So use technology and leverage that, because often we see it as a hindrance to being able to read, and it gets in the way of that. The other thing that we want to do is to model reading as an activity. Read regularly with your child. While you might not be at this age reading a story to them, you could both set aside time to read together. Two separate texts at a particular time in the day, that's something you could do, or offer to show an interest in their writing. So our children are writing every day in their subjects. Perhaps you could ask them, what's something you wrote today in one of your subjects? So showing that interest and allowing them to have pride in the things that they compose as well. But mainly modelling that and showing an interest in that reading as well. Maybe another way to think about it is viewing reading as an asset. Often we think about it as a chore, and our children don't want to do it because it's a little bit hard for them to do. But the research does show that reading does increase critical reasoning skills and academic outcomes overall. So that's a really interesting article there. It's a scholarly article if you're interested in having a read of that. But turning that around and seeing reading as something that can actually really help us. Reading helps us to see what good writing looks like, and if we want to be good writers, then we need to really expose our children to that. The last article that I've linked there is how to develop a reading habit. So reading can be seen as a habit, and if we make it a habit, it has to be a repeated thing. It can't be a singular instance. It needs to be something that our children persist through. And it might be something that we as parents have to persist through, because we are dealing with an age where they are not wanting to often read. You might be lucky to have a child that does read often. A lot of the times we don't. We see them here at school. So the most important thing that you could probably do is create that literacy-rich environment, and we'll continue to do that here at school as well, and show that interest and excitement about reading as well. And our primary teacher said it beautifully, but we need to continue that in the secondary as well.
Fantastic. Now pass on to Mr. Michael Knight, who will talk about numeracy in the secondary.
Thanks, Daryl. Parents, I can see you starting to put some comments there, so I'm about to finish off on numeracy. So if you want to get your comments put in now, and we can answer them as soon as I'm finished talking. But very quickly, we're talking about mathematics in school. We've got to be focused on problem solving. And so you'll hear your child talk about the UPS check scaffold, which they use. And to help you out with the mathematics, here we also have videos that are on the student's Canvas page, which can help you out with any of the mathematics that the child is learning about. But to build on what our primary teachers have said, when it comes to numeracy, we're talking about the mathematics that they can actually use in real life. And just on the next slide, we'll see that there is actually some hints here about things that you can do with your child at home. Each of these hints, I'm hoping it's actually time that is actually quality time that you get to spend with your child. It's already been mentioned, but numeracy in the kitchen is a big one. If you can get your child in the kitchen helping you, you can see so many numeracy-rich activities that are just around. There's the measuring, the quarter cups, the tablespoons, all that is there, ready to go where the child can start learning. Now, we've at my house, I've got a daughter in high school. a son in year 6, we've got them cooking. It helps out massively at home, but it's also got them learning about all different things. So they're estimating quantities, they're learning about ratios, they're checking the temperature on the oven. When it comes to time, they're looking at the 24-hour time that we've got set up on the microwave. They're looking at the 12-hour time that's on the oven. We've also got an analog clock that's just outside the kitchen, because while a lot of the time now is digital time, we still need to be able to use analog clocks. So it's important to get that exposure. More quality time though, let's think about board games. So Snakes and Ladders is fantastic on those wet, rainy days, but Monopoly has so many numeracy opportunities there. Besides the operations with numbers, we're talking about the finance involved with purchasing properties, the percentages. There's a lot of that goes on just in that fun game. Card games is great as well. If you're wanting to have a game of 21 or blackjack with your child, the actual building up, just adding 2 numbers together is a very important skill. Some more quality time sitting down and watching the sporting events. Now, you think about all the maths that goes on there, and we're not just talking about like how many goals have Liverpool conceded, but you could be looking more at things like how many, in AFL is a great one. What's the score from kicking these goals? And I still remember the day that I asked a year 7 student, like, is 6 a factor of 20? And instantly they responded with, well, it's not a factor. 6 isn't a factor of 20, because in AFL, if you kick 3 straight goals, you still need 2 behinds to get up to 20. And so they had been exposed to something where they could then apply it in real life. But other things, if it's a soccer match, you may say, it's like, how much longer is there to go in this game? And they have to try and build up to the next 10. There's a whole lot that goes on in sporting activities. When it comes to pocket money, I know that a lot of our money now is online, but if you're able to give pocket money, like physical $5 notes for doing chores, the students can actually see their wealth building up. And then it's really important that when grandma or grandpa gives them $50 for their birthday present, that you let them make the decisions what they want to do with that money. Now, you can encourage them to invest it, but possibly you could say, listen, we're going to put away $30, $20 a year to go down to the shops and spend. Now, that's their decision what they do with it. And if they decide to spend it on Pokemon trading cards and they get home and they regret that, let them make that decision then, because it's much better to lose that $20 rather than when they become an adult to make poor investment opportunities or purchase a really expensive car, which they could have learnt from when they were younger. Other things include that your teenage child is asking for a mobile phone. Get them involved, get them to do the research on the best mobile phone plans. Or if they've already got a mobile phone, tell them that, hey, listen, if you can find a better plan, we'll give you that extra money as pocket money. And so it saves you there. But I know the tape measures came out before, and that is really important. We need our students being able to use that equipment. But how this has actually been used is you could actually say to your child, listen, you want to renovate your room. If you're wanting to purchase, say, these twinkle lights to go around your room, why don't you actually have a look at what the perimeter of your room is? Or you wanting to paint your room, why don't you look at the quantity of paint that's needed? So there's so many different opportunities that actually involve you spending quality time with your child. Darren.
Wow, I can't believe we got through all of that in just over 25 minutes. So now over to you, parents. It's your opportunity to ask questions. There are some questions that have come already in the comment box, and thank you so much, parents, for the positive feedback. As you can see, we're very passionate about our education. We're very passionate about our literacy and numeracy skills. A couple of questions for the primary school. So Ashleigh and Steph, the first thing is about accessing Overlay Library. Do we access
yes.
Overlay Library?
Yes. So I know our year 2 and year 1 parents are used to accessing the library, and we've had a few delayed timings this year. So because we changed our bell times, and Overlay also changed their RFF model when they were having Italian and music and library and things like that, Mr. Calabria was conscious of losing what was their music room and has now become our year 1 and year 2 classroom, and having to move that into the library. So we've had to do a lot of timetabling changes, particularly with OLA, and we were letting them settle in first. I've just heard from the librarian today, in fact, of the time slots that are available during the week. So I'm working with the librarian now. We first need to get all of the students onto the OLA library system. Once that has done, we will then adjust our timetables. So library will start in term 2 for our Santa Sophia students at the OLA library. I will confirm days and times with all of the parents once I've spoken to the classroom teachers in terms of when it best fits into their weekly schedule.
And we will let you know when that is through Seesaw. So each grade will let you know once we know what day to bring library bags.
But term 2.
Fantastic. We've all obviously inspired some parents. So we've got here Sheila, I agree. So Sheila's going to get Sebastian to renovate his room.
Excellent. Great
A
decision.
lot of literacy, a lot of numeracy. Take measures out.
I look forward to seeing the blueprints.
Look, there's another question, primary team, about primary numeracy. Can you talk a little bit about the different coloured groups? So we've got here, Maria Attan has said that when her daughter has come home, they're talking about in the numeracy, that there are different groups like yellow and blue. Are they talking maybe about the
they're probably
phases of learning or literacy groups?
Well, it could be literacy or numeracy groups. I'm assuming it's literally just the students being placed into multiple different groups due to the amount of teachers that are in the room. So often there's an additional teacher to the 2 classroom teachers. And so splitting 2 classes into 3 is easily done by having different colours. That's all that would be. It might even be a master class as well. So students with an identified need of maybe extension with number lines, if they're looking into exploring 3-digit number lines now, or it could be students knowing already how to skip count, which particularly we've noticed our year 2 students can do. They know how to skip count by 2s, 5s, 10s, but they're not as confident on 2 more or 2 less, 5 more or 5 less, 10 more or 10 less. So applying the pattern to another context. So sometimes the teachers will run a masterclass for those particular groups. So the colouring is literally just teachers finding an easy way to group students.
Wonderful. Look, parents, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Thank you to our expert leaders who have, I've learnt a lot just by being here and listening to the wonderful tips that we can, and as parents, we can access at home. Thank you to the positive feedback, and you know that at any time, please contact the school and we're more than happy to provide any additional information. There will be resources that will go up on the Facebook page, so you can access that. And other than that, on behalf of our Santa Sophia school, we would like to wish you a very good night, and until we see you next time, goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.